Let's get started. A wonderful Tuesday evening. If you are in the Asia time zone, lunch 11:30. If you are in Europe, and very early morning to the US time zone. We are discussing every Tuesday all the topics that are happening in the cake DeFi world. I'm co-founder and CEO of the company. We always have Fabio on, who is leading all the efforts on the community side. Every once in a while, we have other team members on who share a bit on their parts. And we're doing this every Tuesday. And recording it, putting it on a podcast afterwards. So if you're tuning in live, you can ask questions, tweet at me at Julian Hosp, and then we'll answer these questions. This is going to be the last Twitter space of 2021. There will be a 2 week, not really a break, but there will be a 2 week slowdown in the company. We always do this at the last 2 weeks of the months, where basically all the operations are going as normal, but we are minimizing any kind of feature updates, any kind of product updates, any kind of activities, simply to give everyone a bit of some time to calm down, to decompress. It was a heck of a year. I not in my wildest dreams would I have thought that we could achieve all these crazy things that we have achieved. We had just another week of most like strongest user growth ever. And like there was the strongest week last week. So thank you so much to all the new customers that we have now on the platform. Despite crypto been really, really volatile, and I know especially over the past couple of days we have seen some sell-offs in the various markets. We're going to address that also on the platform. We have pretty much all-time high when measured in dollars, when measured in Bitcoin. So yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for all the users that come in and that show us their trust and appreciate our value. And then not only signing up, but really putting funds with the platform and get cash flow from their crypto. So yeah, a couple of things that I want to talk about. Obviously, discuss the markets. Want to discuss a very juicy Christmas promo that we have as a thank you. I mentioned this last time. I want to tease it a bit longer, but I want to tease it a bit more today. You're not going to get all the details. The only detail you're going to get is it's going to apply to any customer, be it existing, be it brand new. You have to be verified in order to get it. So you want to complete your KYC and you want to complete your sign up process. It is going to be a promo that is 100% coming out of our own pocket. So I can assure you this is a pure, kind of thank you payback kind of type of a Christmas promo. This is applicable to all customers and you're going to love it, I can assure. I am not aware of any other company having something like that. So yeah, more details a bit later, but that's going to be something we're going to discuss. Obviously, want to discuss all the updates that are happening, topics that and discussion points that we had in the community this week, and then obviously answering all your questions. So Fabio, you please co-host here, share a bit. How has the past week been for you? I think a bit of a roller coaster. Whenever I get an update from you, sometimes you're like, "Oh, community's ecstatic." Then the next day, "Oh no, it's like a manic depressive here, complete depression right now." The next day, "Oh, community couldn't be happier." Day after, "Oh, the community is completely devastated." It feels like a bit of a manic depressive person. Share a bit what's going on.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the last Twitter Space of 2021. It was a crazy year, a crazy week, and yesterday a crazy day, I guess. Sometimes it baffles me a little bit how fast the sentiment can shift. You were talking about this for quite a while now, that we need more bearishness in the market, that people are too bullish, that influencers are expecting, everybody was expecting a lot more bullish scenario than what we actually have right now. So, and yesterday, I guess, was the cherry on top of the cake. Markets are very undecisive right now, and we're holding on to a thread. Like on if you look a little bit at technical analysis on Bitcoin, we're just holding on to the 50 moving average, and we're actually slightly below it right now. And you can really see the sentiment shift. So if you were following like big polls of influencers just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, then the majority of people, around 66%, were actually bullish and were expecting all-time highs this year or in Q1. And if you followed a little bit what polls were saying yesterday, we had a complete turnaround. So people are actually very bearish. They're talking about the top is in, and maybe you should get out of the market right now. They're expecting the Bitcoin to go sub 20K. And so the sentiment clearly shifted around within 5 weeks. If you go back 5 weeks, the fear and greed index was like at 80. And right now it's, I think, at 10 or at 15. So
still
yeah.
way too bullish. Way too bullish.
Way too bullish. Yeah. Also, like within our own community, there were like, it was a roller coaster over the past 1 or 2 weeks. Like we had this, I would say, bottoming out at the end of October, beginning of November, where the sentiment was at an all-time low. Everybody was frustrated, and nobody knew what was coming. And then suddenly, everybody got excited about the decentralized assets launching, and they could see like the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. And this resulted in instant FOMO, like from 1 week to another. And the price, I don't know, in total it went up. It more than doubled. Like it's still up more than double. And yesterday we had like the first correction, I guess, people taking profits or just the normal correction that was expected because the whole market was down 40%, while DeFi chain, for example, was up 100%. And yesterday we saw especially a big correction when it comes to altcoins. I have no clue where we go from here. What are your thoughts?
Man, it's the first time that you say that.
Actually, a funny story. Like we have these team meetings where we talk to each other in the morning and in the evening. Like we call that check in and check out. And yesterday evening during checkout call, our team, when we talk to each other, we're actually super bullish and we're always super cool when prices are moving and everything. And yesterday I noticed we were all kind of, oh, maybe we should take just a little bit of profits for Christmas gifts. And you never know where the market is at the end of the year. And I never saw that before. During the whole year, nobody ever takes profits. And yesterday was like the first time where we said, oh, maybe $500 or $1,000 for Christmas. You never know where prices are heading. So yeah, I guess everybody feels the tension.
Fabio is calling the bottom. Listen, everyone, this is officially Fabio calling the bottom here. Normally, he has always been so bullish, and now for the very first time, he's admitting that during a team call, people were talking about, taking some profits. Good. That is a very bullish signal, to be honest. Yeah, I'm a contrarian. I think most people know that. Fabio generally is a perma-bull. I'm more of a contrarian. So when I see that the market has a lot of bullish sentiment, I'm generally a bit more cautious. If the market is really cautious, then and I don't see the reason for being cautious. And I'm happy to discuss this a bit. But then generally, I tend to go a bit more bullish. What are the large influencers saying? I mean, I find this always a bit weird how a lot of these perma bulls suddenly are like becoming like, oh, I told you guys like we're gonna be oversold, like overbought, and then suddenly like everyone that kind of has been so bullish, suddenly they're like, oh, I told you guys and stuff. But like, what are the other influencers kind of saying? What's the sentiment in general on some of these like hyper like crypto kind of people?
There is, I guess, two kind of people. You clearly have the perma bulls, the moon boys that would never shift around their sentiment. They just believe in Bitcoin going to, I don't know, 500,000 or and then you have like the more data driven influencers. Like a few good examples would be I guess Benjamin Cohen. He's very realistic, so we're in between the bull market support band and the 50 MA, and he is looking at it from a data science perspective, and he just says, in this sandbox where we are right now, like between the moving averages, this is mostly an indecisive period, so we don't know where we go, and mostly Bitcoin is holding up quite well, and altcoins are a little bit more volatile, as we saw yesterday. Then you have this influencers like, for example, Tech Dev or Plan B, and they try to hold on to their initial theories. So all of them, they were saying, hey, Bitcoin is going to 100,000, Bitcoin is going to 200,000, and they try to find data that still supports their thesis. And they still share these kind of bullish scenarios. But I guess people are no longer believing in them blindly. So Plan B gets a lot of slack for his floor model and for his missed predictions. And but there is other influencers, like maybe I would say a little bit of second tier traders, technical analysis YouTubers, and they post lots of bearish charts. Like they say the top is in, we're going back to the 200 weekly EMA, so it would mean around 20,000. And I saw lots of people that actually already took their profits and said, I'm out. See you in 2 years. So we have clearly a shift in sentiment. Not everybody, but there is lots of people that are bearish right now.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna give a bit of my thoughts on this. Okay, so I see probably three scenarios that have like a bit of a peak when it comes to probability. Now, obviously, no one knows what's gonna happen, so in between those scenarios, you have every possible other outcome. But so when you look at I don't know, you look at any kind of physical theory, you look at wave theory and so on, and then you look at what's actually happening, and you have the wave collapsing into the point to kind of go into a particle. So probability wise, you have every possible outcome. But I see three scenarios where the wave would kind of have a bit of a higher probability. I think the first one is I think right now we are turning into a way too bearish sentiment for what it is right now. I shared this. I think I have shared. I wasn't just going to repeat myself. I think we have seen two events this year that were irrationally bullish. The first one was Elon Musk in Q1, where everyone was just thinking, "Oh, Elon is coming in, Tesla's coming in, and now all the other large S&P 500 companies are all going to get into Bitcoin." And while it is still possible that some other large companies may get into Bitcoin, I think I shared this already in Q1 that I think the probability for most companies, especially the ones where it really matters, right? I mean, sure, there could be some S&P 500 company that like puts Bitcoin onto their balance sheet, but let's be real here. It's really about the top 10, top 15 tech companies that really matter, right? It's a difference if number 480 does it or if Apple does it. It's a difference if Microsoft does it, Google or Alphabet or Amazon versus some other company that, yeah, sure, it's an S&P 500 company, but it doesn't have the kind of gravitas that, for example, one of those top tech companies have. And so I still think there's a chance that this happens, but I just don't see I just see the board issues that these companies have. I see the political issues that they have, the political pressures that they have. And I just don't see that a social media company or that Apple, with all their antitrust lawsuits at the moment that they have around the App Store and all the payment options there, and then Amazon, who constantly face this criticism, that they want to have another attack vector from the government or from the SEC or from whoever putting Bitcoin onto their balance sheet. No matter how much you believe in Bitcoin and no matter how much the dollars that they have on their balance sheet are being inflated away on an annual basis, right? They can make so much more money running their business and not having all this headwinds than turning a certain part of their treasury into Bitcoin, which is gonna get them a lot of investor criticism. Don't forget, like I think in the world, there's a very small percentage that is really a Bitcoin fan, and then there's a large group of people who are just very skeptical of this new kind of asset class. And so they will face some skepticism, some criticism. They will have a lot of rejection there. And then I just understand their entire idea where they're like, look, we have this horse. Let's really raise that horse. Let's not focus too much left and right. If let's say in the case of Apple, let's focus on building a car or going into the health industry. Let's go into those hundreds of billions of dollars where we can execute well, where we do what we do best, which is building a very good supply chain, being very good at building a business. And let's not kind of gamble around in this new asset class that may go up, that may go down, that no one can value, that's super emotional, that has this super strong fan base, but at the same time, it's going to get us a lot of criticism. And so I think this hype cycle in Q1 was irrationally positive. That was also why end of March, beginning of April, I became very, very careful. Probably I was still too bullish myself. I should have gotten way more cautious, but I didn't. I was very cautious on our treasury management in the company back then, and I did face some internal criticism back then because I was the one who said, "Hey, you know what? I really would love to over expose into lower volatility assets and not so much into high volatility assets like crypto." And at the end, it was like a very smart decision back then, in my opinion. And it turned out to have a really good outcome, which is independent of the decision. But I think that was the very first one. And then the second one that, in my opinion, caused way too much optimism was that of the Bitcoin ETF futures and Bitcoin futures ETF. And the issue there was that there was so much hype and so much hope around this actually putting in a lot of Bitcoin and drawing a lot of funds. And it did initially, and it caused a lot of kind of hype. But if you look now at BITO, for example, it still has a lot of liquidity in, but it's like negligible if you compare it to the grand scheme of things. And and again, you look at Grayscale, right? I mean, Grayscale is like what I think 40 times larger or something than the Bitcoin futures ETF, and so I mean it's absolutely negligible. And then on top, Grayscale actually owns the Bitcoin where futures are cash. And I just think that a lot of people they couldn't distinguish between what's actual a value add and what's purely an emotional add. And I kind of try to share this a bit on my Twitter as much as possible, is I think it's easier, especially in crypto, where you have a non-productive asset, where you can compare the value change from the emotional change. And when you look at the value change in Q1, there was not much value change. There were more people coming in, but and there was a lot of hype. But at the end, the emotional change was so much stronger than the value change. And then I think in summer it turned into the opposite, right? Then in the summer, Bitcoin hit a 30,000 price mark, and then I think it was way too pessimistic. And then I think in beginning of Q4, it again swung the total opposite way. I think the October price, and I think we discussed this here in the Twitter Spaces. I do so many interviews and I do so many talks, so sometimes I don't know where I say certain things. So if I'm repetitive, just forgive me, and if I'm not, then great. I just add something again. I always mentioned if the October price goes way too bullish, but then actually doesn't go all the way, it may suck out the entire energy for the rest of the year. And if you look at what really happened, it's exactly what happened. October was way too bullish. It sucked away the entire energy, and that's what we're suffering from right now. And I think that is the main issue. I think there was a lot of um sales points that I think were incorrect to sell. And when you mentioned this, people would always criticize you. I think, for example, this entire sales point around Bitcoin being such a good hedge for inflation is absolutely like ludicrous, comparing it to all the other factors that Bitcoin has. You compare it to gold. Gold, in my opinion, has one single factor, and that is like money supply. It's inflation. Everything else is pretty much negligible. Sure, it has a little bit of a production variance. It has maybe, I don't know, a little bit of the jewelry and industry stuff. But let's be realistic here, right? There's no real supply chain issues. There's no regulatory issues. There's no electricity issues. There's no like outage here, outage there. There's like policy changes. All this stuff doesn't really affect gold. The only thing that it's being affected by, is pretty much the money supply. And that is, yeah, we can discuss like velocity of money, how much that affects it, but that is it, right? So, but again, gold is a dead asset, and I also don't think I would buy gold in order to hedge inflation. I had a discussion on Twitter around this. Raul Paul also jumped in. He mentioned solid real estate. I think also farmland could be very interesting, and obviously stocks. Right, you have like a broad stock index, very very strong for inflation. And so Bitcoin for me, not so much. What is very interesting on the Bitcoin side is obviously owning Bitcoin, getting cash flow on top. I think that really adds a lot of value there. But again, this entire fairy tale around Bitcoin being so good for inflation, I mean, if it hasn't been debunked now, then what does, right? I mean, we have all-time high inflation numbers. I think just on Friday, what we were at 6.8%. Come on, like what's happening? Bitcoin is like, yeah, it's up quite strongly over the last year, but I mean, is that really because of 6.8%, or is that because of everything else? And I think it's really because of everything else. So the inflation side is, in my opinion, not so strong. So suddenly there were a lot of fairy tales that were kind of debunked. And at the end, it comes down to Bitcoin's actual utility. And it is that it is a censorship resistant digital asset. And that's what it is. It's nothing more, nothing, nothing less. And that's absolutely fine. And so all these models, in my opinion, that a plan B and so many other people come out with, like no model can predict all the changes and all the adjustments that got made. Not a single model. I mean, show me a single model that 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, 2019, end of 2019, would have predicted what's happening in the markets over the last 2 years. I'm promising you, not a single model, because everyone who would have made a model that there's going to be a pandemic and there's going to be insane money printing and there's going to be every border is going to get locked down and there's going to be like people are going to get forced to do this and they're not allowed to do this, like everyone would have shut this person down and would have called that person ludicrous. And so none of these models are able to predict any of that. And so when I look at that, now suddenly there's this over pessimism that's coming in. And now suddenly people are like, oh, prices are going down. I don't see what could raise Bitcoin ever. Like there's so much pessimism. You look at open interest on futures, you look at the option market, everything is overly pessimistic. And at the end, that's reflected in the price, but the price is actually still relatively solid if you think of it. I mean, it's 47,000 right now. And there's peak pessimism right now. I mean, sure, it could still go a bit lower, but I think it's very, very low right now. And whenever you have that, that's actually the best potential for the price to go up. And the reason you need to understand that is most people that have sold now have sold now. It's very unlikely that people sit here now and say, you know what? Now I'm going to throw a towel. I'm going to sell right now. It's just very unlikely. It's possible, but very likely. And so that brings me to my very first scenario that has a bit of a peak. And I would give this scenario probably a 25% chance out of all the outcomes that are possible. And that is that we're actually going to see a green December candle, meaning we really need to rally. Maybe we need to get to, like, in my opinion, we have a chance to attack the all-time high. I don't think we will achieve it, but I think we have a chance to actually attack the all-time high this year. And I think we have a chance to go to 60,000. Now, I know this sounds crazy from today's point of view, but this would be a 20, 25% kind of rally until end of the year. Maybe a bit more, but I think that is realistic. Now, where would this come from? Well, it doesn't actually come from a significant driver. It just comes from that suddenly all the motivated sellers have sold. There's just no more motivated selling. There's people like myself who said, you know what, I rebalanced my portfolio. I'm like, I don't care what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin goes to 30,000. I'm not doing anything. Bitcoin goes to 60,000. I'm not doing anything. I'm rebalanced. I'm good. I'm fine. All is done. And I think there's more and more of these people now in the market. And suddenly there's no more motivated selling. And so what's left over is some motivated buyers. And that suddenly is going to create a cascade of positivity. And I think that's a very possible scenario. Now, is it the most likely? No, all the other outcomes together are more likely, but I think it has a possible like peak in its probability. So that's the first one. I don't know, Fabio, do you want to jump in here? Anyone else talking about that? I'm not following enough the other influencers that I would know all this, but are people talking about such a scenario?
Yeah, definitely. Everything is on the table right now. And I would agree with you that everybody that has not sold now is not likely to sell, even if we saw another drawdown. We saw funding rates resetting. So we even saw some negative days when it comes to funding rate. This is, for me, always an important thing to look at. And maybe just to give a little bit of the other side of the argument, what I always believe in when it comes, let's say, to Fortune 500 companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, I'm pretty sure actually that they will not share this until they are, like, let's say, out of the woods. So let's say if Apple actually did buy some Bitcoin, they would not share this until they are out of the woods. So if they're like 30% in profits, and then in retrospective, it's, oh yeah, we bought some. And so I guess I still have this hopium in the back of my mind. And yeah, for me, I feel the bearish sentiment, like in my personal thinking or when I interact with the community, when I read the socials. But the base thesis for me has not changed, and I guess it's the same for you. I'm not selling, even if we go down to 30, and I'm not selling if we go up to 60. And I guess most of the people that remain in these kinds of corrections, they have a similar mindset. They're in it for the long run, and these corrections and the bearish sentiment is needed to shake out, let's say, the non-believers or the weak hands, as we in the crypto space like to say, the paper hands. And what remains are the people with a long time vision and the stomach to bear the volatility. Yeah, but you summed it up quite nicely, so no more to add.
Yeah, 100%. I think that all scenarios have, at least for me, have, maybe there's a, I don't know, a 5% kind of probability that like we're never going to see a new all-time high. I just think that like it's a very low probability scenario. So the like majority of scenarios in my thinking have a new all-time high on the horizon, right? The question is just on what kind of time frame. And so first one, we not gonna see a new all-time high this year, but it's like, to me, a new all-time high is very, would have to have a catalytic event, and I just don't see that catalyst. So if that catalyst were there, right, if there were like this big surprise and like there would be this new kind of, I don't know, spot ETF, like major company going in, new government going in to Bitcoin. Like I just don't see this now in the next 2 weeks, right? And I think that's kind of, yeah, it's the 14th, yeah. So over the next 2 weeks, I just don't see that, right? That's just, again, my probabilities here. So, but then again, we may still have suddenly this bullish sentiment simply because there is just no more motivation to sell, and so the people, like the price action comes more from motivated buyers. The second scenario is, okay, this is not happening, and that's obviously more likely that it's not happening than it is happening. Otherwise, I would give it a high probability. But so I would say 25% that this will happen, and so I would say like then suddenly there's going to be this pessimism over the next couple of weeks, couple of months, because, oh, Bitcoin didn't do so well as expected. We all were expecting 2021 to be like 2017. Now Bitcoin did only, like obviously air quotes here, did only 70%. Oh no, that's so bad. Blah 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 blah. And that will probably weave in a bit into Q1. And then I call this a bit more the influencer kind of statements, because like whenever I see like a lot of these pumpy, hypey YouTubers and influencers on Twitter or people sharing, then most of them are now talking about like a Q2 run, right? So they're like, so end of Q1, beginning of Q2. Generally, I think that's a bit unlikely that it's actually Q2, just because normally Q2 is not like, again, many times it falls a bit into the summer one, but maybe it's going to happen end of Q1, beginning of Q2. That I think that could definitely be an idea here. And what you would be looking for is, you would look for this really, not so much peak pessimism. You would look for no one interested anymore, like no more emotions, right? I'm a person, I think the only real indicator I actually look for are emotions, because at the end most people make decisions based on emotions, which is most of the time bad decision making. It works only in one case well, and that is if you use positive emotions for your relationships. That's absolutely good, right? With your kids, with your partner, with your wife, with your family. You want to be irrationally positive and irrationally like optimistic and loving, right? That makes so much sense. But in nothing else do you want to have that. So, and since most people are actually weirdly the other way around, especially male, right? They're like weirdly unemotional in their relationships and weirdly emotional in their investments. That can actually be a very good indicator, knowing that most people that way make bad decisions and irrationally bad decisions in investing. And so what you would be looking for, and that was really in Q1, when you suddenly see people interested in a lot of things, but not crypto. So when you see that, right, and we haven't seen this probably since 2019. I always share, I think April 2nd, 2019 is when this bull run started. That's when suddenly we had this Bitcoin jump. And since then, I think Bitcoin has been on people's minds that have been investing in this almost on a daily basis, if not on a daily basis. But all through like 2018, I think a lot of people just didn't even want to look at their portfolio. They didn't want to follow the news. They didn't want to look on the price. They just didn't care. And and I think maybe we're going to see a little bit of that in Q1. And people are going to talk about a crypto winter, and people are going to talk about how 2018 is going to be all over again. But the fundamentals are actually very different. Let's be real here. In 2017, Bitcoin went from, I think, 800 to 20,000, right? So we're talking about what, a 12.5x. Sorry, a 22.5x. So it's an absolutely insane kind of comparison, looking at what the kind of run up was in 2017 versus 0.7x here now in 2021. And so it's a completely different scenario. So 2022 is very unlikely going to be like 2018 just because the entire fundamentals are completely different. And so people are going to talk about this. People are going to stop watching YouTube. They're going to stop watching crypto Twitter. And then bam, suddenly either there's a catalyst or there's just something that's going to lift the price up. And I think that is actually, and I get why a lot of influencers are talking about it. I think it has the highest probability of all the outcomes, just because it fits really, it's really well in line with a possible news cycle. It's very well in line with the entire emotional and sentiment cycle. So I think that that does make a lot of sense. Fabio, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, like the thing that I always watch, and maybe I have a little bit of a bias there because I'm confronted with it on a daily basis when managing community and reading through social comments. But the thing that I always look for is there is a certain kind of personality we saw joining in 2021, or maybe it was earlier the case as well, where people are just looking for 10x, 100x, easy money, fast money. And they if you join in a bull market, you will feel yourself confirmed in your own decision, because hey, everything is going up and you're making nice money, and you see you kind of feel where this is going. So you enter the market, you're up 2x, 3x, and you think, okay, let's go. In end of the year, I'm going to be at my financial goals, so I'm going to have a 10x or I'm going to have a 100x. And people are really if an investment of them of theirs doubles, they're not happy with that. They think they underperformed because you always see all the other people that are doing well. So you saw, I don't know, for example, Dogecoin or Shiba Inu that had insane run-ups, and people, they sit in their investment and they see, oh wow, this other coin performed 10x, and then they're like grasshoppers hopping from one coin to the next one. And most of them actually had their first drawdowns this May when we peaked out, and now. And right now, it's a little bit of a turning point where they see, oh, this doesn't only go one way. And I think either you need these people the time to grow up in the market, that they see, hey, not everything is going up forever, and there is like two sides of a coin, or they're leaving because they are burned in their investment. So I don't know, they invested in Shiba Inu when it was at their highs, and since then it's continuously bleeding away. And at one point they pack their bags and they say, okay, I'm done. And I think this still has not happened completely. The markets are still kind of hot when it comes to meme coins and NFTs. So there could possibly be a little bit more blood, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there's blood on the street at all at the moment. So when people say, "Oh, there's blood on the street," you need to buy when there's blood on the street, dude. Like those people, they are talking about they have no clue what blood on the street is. Yeah, you mentioned Doge. I always kind of jokingly said there's like the Dogecoin FOMO indicator, Dogecoin hype indicator. Like just be completely rational, right? Don't look at the market cap. Just kind of visualize these things. And these are the thoughts or the questions that I kind of try to include in my own decision making. And I think most people know that I'm a very, yeah, like rational. I don't have much emotions in general, right? Which obviously is can be bad, can be good, whatever you see how you see this. But like a question, for example, I would ask myself is, if something wasn't a crypto, if something was more like a company, right? And more like maybe a social network or something, um, how much value, how much market cap, how much would an investor pay for a company that is the second most popular cryptocurrency in the US. I know I said it's not a cryptocurrency, but just use that. And Doge that is being shilled by one of the number one entrepreneurs in this world with Elon Musk, right? That yeah, it doesn't really have much utility other than it sits there and is obviously like it's a meme. It has a very strong brand. How much do you think something like that would be worth, right? And I think if someone would say, "Oh, that's worthless. That's a shit coin," honestly, I think that is a very biased person that is not capable of thinking rationally about actual value, right? Because that is definitely not true. There's 100% some value having Elon Musk talk about you with 70 million Twitter followers being featured on Saturday Night Live. Like, I get it. The value is different than, for example, Bitcoin's value. It's different to what, I don't know, an Apple stock is, right? But like saying that it's the value is zero is probably as irrational as giving it a value of the same as Bitcoin, right? So we have to discuss this. Like, what is the value? And I always mention that I think anything between like under 10 billion probably is too cheap when I compare to what this could be worth, right? But probably like a $50 billion is also too high. And so I don't know where Doge is right now. Let me just quickly look. So right now Doge is, if I see this correctly, let me just follow that. It's around at 25 billion, right? So it's actually right in the middle of that kind of category. So I actually think if I think of like where would I think Doge is starting to be underpriced, undervalued, it's probably at around minus 50% from right now. So like I think a lot of those meme coins and a lot of those hype coins that are like where the utility is maybe not the same as for some other cryptocurrencies, they're probably still like 50%, like they could drop by 50%. And then I would say, you know what? Now we're starting to go into a fair value kind of basis. And now is the interesting question, right? Where could this dissociation between the more fundamentally strong cryptocurrencies and the more like, and it's probably weird to say, but the more emotional ones, and Bitcoin is already very emotional, the others get even more emotional. Where could this dissociation happen, right? And it all comes down to emotions. And so the emotional change would cause that dissociation. And the emotional change that you would love to see here, or not love to see, depending on which side you're in, is like when people are like when they're not interested in crypto anymore. Because then what's happening is that the emotions get less strong for certain coins that you need to have more emotions for, and generally that's Doge in this case. And then those coins that don't need as much emotion and they still need a lot but less is Bitcoin. And so what would happen then if over the next 3 to 4 months people be like, crypto, that was a fad. Like it was super strong. Now it's getting not interesting anymore. Oh man, let me look for something else where I can flip a 2 or 3x in like one go. Man, the NFT bubble is popping, like, or it's deflating. I don't care about this anymore. Blah blah blah. And I'm gonna look for other things, right? And then when this happens, generally you have those more emotional projects disappearing and having issues, and then the Doge hype indicator, how I would call it, goes a bit more to the fair value kind of base, and the coins that have more utility or more, let's say, like real world, easier to understand utility, versus you have a bit more of a sentimental, collectible, more kind of groupthink, like utility, they would have a bit of an like a sell-off in this case. And so that is what I could actually see until end of Q1, Q2, which would, and I don't believe in Bitcoin seasons anymore. I believe way more into like, are the coins, do they have a strong use case? Have you used those coins before, right? Or are you just buying them and hoping for a price increase? Have you actually used its intended use case? And I always share, I say, the three main coins that I put my money in, and now my number one position is DeFi chain. I use DeFi chain. I use it for what it's intended. It's DeFi for the entire ecosystem. Mainly built around the Bitcoin ecosystem, but it works and I use it, right? So that is clear. I have used Ethereum and I've used Bitcoin. I have seriously never used Doge. I have not, like, I think Doge is like for transferring value, probably. I don't 100% know, but I've not used that, right? I haven't used a single other smart contract platform. And that is why I don't overexpose into those. Because for me, and that's not me talking bad about other projects, maybe you have used Solana, maybe you've used Cardano, maybe you've used Polkadot, maybe you've used Cosmos. I don't know, in all the 50 other projects, right? Maybe you've actually used them. I haven't. That doesn't make me better or worse. It's just like I own Tesla shares because I own a Tesla and I drive a Tesla and understand how that Model 3 works and what its ins and outs are. And I think I understand how the Tesla owner thinks. And at the end, that's what the fundamental issue is. I own Tesla, I own Apple shares because like literally every single one of my products is an Apple product. I don't own a single like Google product other than like I use like on like Google Docs or something. But other than that, I don't. Right? Microsoft. I use PowerPoint just because I have to, not because I want to. And so I'm just very much of that kind of user, and I would highly recommend considering that over the next 3 to 6 months, there's actually a very high probability that those coins that are actually being used, that people don't just buy because the price is going up, but they're actually buying it because they understand how this thing works. These coins can have a strong outperformance over, and let's call them a bit more value coins, which I think is still a ridiculous term, but let's call them value coins. The value coins have a higher chance of doing well over the next 3 to 6 months than, and let's kind of use stock analogies here, than those meme and maybe the growth coins, right? Where you're investing more into the future, where you're hoping more stuff is happening, or where it's purely about memeing. And if you look over the last 6 to 9 months, actually it was the other way around, right? The growth coins, the meme coins, they did better actually than the value coins, if you want to call it this way. And so that is kind of the second scenario here. Yeah, the third scenario, it's a scenario that I don't hear being talked so much about. That's why I'm actually probably, I should be more bullish in that scenario. I'm just probably not more bullish because it's the most bearish scenario of them all. It's what I call like more of the rubber ball, like, or the bouncy ball theory. I kind of shared this a bit. I don't want to go too much into detail in that, but like the general theme of it is that like actually the peak was in April. And then on the way down, like normally you have a dead cat bounce. You always have those, right? So it's like this dead cat bouncing down the stairs. And normally the bounce is about 50% up from the drop. So if we drop from whatever, 65,000, let's say, and we drop down, and I think on the first drop we were like to 40 or 50,000, whatever. And then the bounce goes up, right? And then it should stop at 50% and then drops further. Imagine it suddenly gets energy on the way up, but the energy, it's not good energy. It's just energy. And that was the energy of the Bitcoin futures ETF. And that energy made it actually bounce up. And normally it doesn't bounce over the peak, even though the 69,000 almost did. But it did for two reasons. First of all, because money got printed in between. So you need to measure Bitcoin in M2. And that's a very good tip that I have for you. Like use the right unit, right? Don't use dollars, use M2. So you're not going to get a dollar price. You're going to get this weird 2.2 or 2.3. But I think use M2. I think that makes more sense. And then when you do that, you actually see that it like it barely made an all-time high, if at all. Like we can argue which kind of exchange price to use. So barely. And then you could always say how much energy was being put in. And so if you buy into that theory, and it's like the bouncy ball theory, then the question then is where does the bouncy ball go next, right? And what's the next kind of cycle? And so an interesting one is if you then look at the Mayer multiple and you look at when does the Mayer multiple always go into this overpriced kind of zone, and you'll see that it actually does that almost on a 1.5 year basis. So it doesn't really do it on a 4 year basis. It did it like between 2013 and 2017. We could discuss if this was really a proper cycle simply because of Mount Gox. But when you look at all the steps between, you actually see more of like a 1.5 year kind of cycle, right? And so it's not really 4 years. It gets screwed around a bit, and it actually fits almost better than the 4 years. But again, so and that's just when you look at basically the comparison price to 200-day average. That's the Mayer multiple for those that don't know. And so you can then see, okay, it was end of 2017, and then it got, so 2018, mid 2019, right? And then you kind of go 1.5 years again. And now when you go into another 1.5 years, you would have it actually end of 2022. So in a year's time, beginning of 2023. So that completely skews everything around a bit. It would fit into this. So if you're kind of asking me for the most bearish scenario right now, then we're going to have a very dire year next year, and we're going to have a bullish Q4 next year. I don't think that that's the most likely scenario, but from all the things that I could rationally explain and that I could all go like that I could go in, I think that is the most likely and it's still a very unlikely scenario. I probably give it like a 15% or something out of all the scenarios that we're gonna have a very dire next couple of quarters. Yeah, so again, I just want to be completely open here on those ideas. And I'm talking about when are we going to see a new all-time high here with Bitcoin, right? So this will be kind of the scenarios. Yeah, Fabio, what do influencers say, or what do the others say, if Q1, Q2 is not like the breakout time? When are we going to see a 2-year crypto winter, which I don't see at all? Yeah, what do they say?
I guess a large majority of people expect a top in Q1 next year now. Also, if you look at polls where influencers ask, hey, when do you see a top coming? My tendency is that it's probably going to be a bit later. It's just my personal feeling. But definitely, I guess the large majority of influencers and people on the socials, they feel or they see 2021 Q1 top coming.
Okay. 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 Cool. Yeah. So these are a bit of the 3 scenarios. Obviously, you have everything in between based on the information that I have right now. Obviously, you have new information. I see completely new ideas. None of that, obviously, is any kind of financial advice. This is just how I invest my own personal money, how I have my allocations, how we allocate the treasury at the company. Again, I am generally a very conservative investor in a simple way where whenever I'm not sure about scenarios, I diversify a lot. When I'm very sure about scenarios, I go more focused in. I think, yeah, there's this very famous Mark Twain quote that goes, yeah, it's not those things that you don't know that tend to kill you. It's those things where you are certain, but then they're actually not the way you expect them to be that really kill you. And yeah, I'm so like I think that is such a good quote. So yeah, that is a bit of the almost like a year kind of preview on where I see this entire thing going from here. In general, I want to reiterate that, right? I'm very, very bullish on the long run when it comes to prices and when it comes to value, and it all tends from utility. I do believe, right? And again, let's kind of soften that also a bit. I do believe that Bitcoin is underperforming against other well-performing coins. And we've seen this over the past couple of years, and I think we're going to see this continuing. But also, Bitcoin has, if you look for the lowest risk in the crypto space, it has the lowest risk. It's by far the most well-known coin, and it's by far the most advanced coin. It has the least amount of complexity, and so a lot of these things can be very, very good and very, very strong. So yeah, there's also a bit of the reason why I personally have decreased a bit my Bitcoin exposure about, I think, 2 months ago. Yeah, and that is also the reason why DeFi chain is my number 1 personal position. People asked how do we handle that in the company? What's our treasury? They're like, we've always had our treasury in Bitcoin and Ethereum. We've had a very similar, like not an equal split, but a very good split there. I see any kind of deviation from Bitcoin and Ethereum, and this is generally, I think, most large funds see it that way. You look at ARK Invest. As soon as you go away from those 2 coins, you're really kind of looking for more alpha. So you look for outperformance, and you are willing to take some risk with that. And for us, this as well. We have, I think, 2 months ago, I mentioned this a couple of times here, we've started building up a DFI position in the company. Yeah, we've been holding that position. We're not intending on selling that position. We've not added to that position in the last, I think, week or so. But yeah, we have definitely built that position, and we see that long term. And yeah, now we just want to see how this is going forward. Also, in the company, right? We wouldn't trade US dollars or fiat or low volatility assets for high volatility assets, simply because we have such a high exposure to crypto already when it comes to business. But yeah, we also wouldn't panic sell. Exact opposite. Generally, we're really long term holders on those assets. So yeah, and yeah, so that's been of the strong, like a long-term kind of view here. Yeah, a bit of a longer session today on the general market. Anything to add here, Fabio? Otherwise, I would love to shift over to talk really about company stuff.
Yeah, let's shift over to company stuff.
Cool. What are the main topics that that the company, that the community talks about in the group, that people talk in the chat?
I guess right now there's 2 or 3 main issues that we can address shortly. Like the one thing is liquidity mining simple mode. This is currently being worked on, and I guess we're almost done there. I don't want to give an exact timeline, but it's practically done. It needs some testing, and then we can roll it out again. For those of you that haven't followed, this function was not working for the last 10 days or so. Because we experienced some minor issues, and it's currently being revamped so that it does probably work. And the other thing is we changed around a few things in the back end when it comes to liquidity mining rewards transactions. So we split them up into, like, in the beginning it was 1 transaction, now there are 3 transactions, and this caused a few issues for the reporting. So the number of rewards that you see on your website and also the number that you see in your email were affected by this. So there was a wrong representation in the Monday morning's email when it comes to liquidity mining rewards. And also we took down the small part on the website that represents the awards you're getting. So both these numbers, they're actually like an order of magnitude lower what is actually the case. Like you can go into all transactions or into the export feature that we offer, and then there you will see all rewards displayed correctly. But we're also almost done with fixing those. So the team is aware, and they already addressed these things, and we're going to roll them out shortly. These are like the 2 main topics that are discussed. Maybe the other thing is we had a few hours last week where we were closed for DFI deposits and withdrawals because we were updating to notes, the new note release 2.3.1. And maybe interesting to know for everybody is there are a few exchanges that, or every exchange needs to upgrade the node software as well. Now, there is a difference in process. Like at Cake, we use a snapshot. So it's very, very fast. I think we were closed for 4 hours or so. But most of the exchanges, they like to do a complete reindex because they don't trust anybody. They want to have a clean reindex when they upgrade their nodes. And as anybody that runs a node knows, this takes like forever. This can take up to a few days to do a full reindex. And if you're wondering why a few exchanges are open and others are not, it's most likely because they are reindexing. I think this is also something that comes up a lot in our chats.
Yeah. Interesting. I just got the tweet from someone. I don't know if this is true. Maybe it's completely untrue. Off topic right now. Elon Musk and Tesla are accepting Dogecoin again. This was just tweeted at me when I was reading through your questions, and I thought it was just hilarious when we discussed this now half an hour ago about talking about Dogecoin. Sorry, because I was just looking through the questions. Yeah, I don't know if this is true or not. Someone just tweeted it to me. Maybe it's a Bloomberg article. Could be fake as well. So don't take this at face value. I didn't have a chance to read it. Yeah, I think the topics you address are very essential. Let me maybe add a few things here. Liquidity mining, especially also simple mode. Before, there were always 2 coins that were affected, right? So it was, for example, Bitcoin and DFI, Ethereum and DFI. Suddenly now it's actually 3 coins, because most of the time you have a source coin where you're starting from. For example, let's say it's Bitcoin and you start at DFI, and you go into, for example, D Tesla, and you go into like DUSD. So suddenly you have 3 coins, and that was a bit trickier. Also for the rewards, same story. Before it was, for example, Bitcoin and DFI, and you were receiving DFI and Bitcoin. Now, for example, D Tesla liquidity mining, you get rewards from D Tesla, from DUSD, and from DFI. So suddenly now you get 3 coins, and that was like all a humongous bit of a change. Yeah, so that was just something, that I wanted to mention here. Cool. I think all the other questions that I see here got covered. Do we have any other topic to add here, Fabio?
Maybe to finish off, let's deliver on the title of this of this Twitter space. So a super short recap and a super short preview for 2022, and maybe also a Christmas promotion that we wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I wanted to finish with that. But do a bit of I think a bit of a recap would be nice. Why don't you kind of
Yeah,
like lay it out
sure.
a bit? I'll jump in or I'll add a few things.
Maybe for everybody that is new or for everybody that was with us along the way for 2021, we started off the last year similar as we are finishing off this one. So we launched liquidity mining with crypto, with Bitcoin and Ethereum and lots of other things in December last year. And back then, we were clearly in a bull cycle. Everything was exploding. And the period between December and January was, we call that internally KYC hell. And we had like a backlog of 2 weeks because we had so many signups and not enough personnel to clear through all the cases. And it was insane. We had to hire a whole team, and everybody in the company was helping out doing KYC cases. Then in Q1, we started a little bit of a cleanup. We're planning to do that in the beginning of 2022 as well, where we move really fast from idea to implementation. There's so many things happening, and sometimes you just need to stop, set up a new base camp, and clean up everything that happened before that. And so we cleaned up lots of things, and then we started launching things again. We revamped all of our major products or services, and starting with the freezer. So we introduced different timelines and different durations, and with different rewards. And a little bit later that year, we started working on our referral program and our confectionery, our VIP program. And then in the summer, during the summer, there were, of course, there was you guys bought out all external investors. That was, I think, happening in April or in May.
Yeah,
So
actually, end of March. Yeah, that happened end of March. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also a major event. And then later the year in when we go into autumn, there was the new 5-year freezer and the new 10-year freezer. And of course, right now we're finishing off the year with launch of decentralized assets. And we are almost there with implementing. I guess there's 3 pools missing. All other pools are already live and implemented. And yeah, there's still lots that we need to address. And we promised a few times you will see graphs and portfolio diagrams to track your rewards, to track your investments. Almost there. We're almost there. I was saying that the last few times as well, but this time I feel very comfortable that we're in the finishing stages of that. And that's a little bit of what was happening in 2021. Also very similar to last year. In December, we are breaking all records when it comes to customer funds, to sign-ups, to everything. Also the team internally, we're scaling a lot. Maybe you can address this a little bit better than I can, Julian.
Sure. I mean, on the team side, we're now close to 100 employees. I mean, I think we started the year with 20. Just imagine what this does to a company and to the kind of interactions and scaling. I think I still know everyone. Maybe not right away when I see someone, but I think I still like. I definitely like when I see a face or when I see the name. I'm 100% sure that I could distinguish if that person actually works at Cake or doesn't. So we're not at that size where I'm like, my goodness, I've never even heard of that person. So we're not there yet. Also, because every new team member, we have them welcome themselves, like say a few words. We have a bit of a presentation for everyone, so that always helps during our town hall sessions. And so then there's whenever someone passes probation, we celebrate that. When they have cake anniversary, so at least a year at the company, we celebrate that. So that's I think that all that helps. But we have grown immensely. We haven't shared publicly our customer assets. We haven't shared publicly our customer numbers. That has some very specific reasons that I don't want to go into detail right now, but it's more really about at the moment we're a private company. The shareholders is pretty much u-zyn and myself. It's a 50-50 split with some employees who have stock options. So again, there's not much to share there because it doesn't really add any value for someone out there. Because I mean, it's nice and great if you know how many customers we have or how many customer assets, but it doesn't really change anything for you, right? It's really more relevant internally. Yeah, but that is, I mean, all these are like, obviously it's a huge difference, right? If you have, I don't know, millions of dollars in assets or suddenly billions of dollars in assets, right? Humongous difference. It's a humongous difference if you're talking about tens of thousands of customers or hundreds of thousands of customers. Big difference, right? When it comes to community side, to customer support side, to scaling, to server side, everything, right? The problems don't just go double with double the customers. It suddenly goes like it goes multiple because you have so many more possibilities for issues. And so, yeah, on the one hand, I mean, like, look, this is a lot of work, but we do this because we love doing it, and we're super happy and glad. And yeah, if like for one thing, I think for next year, I'm definitely gonna basis in 2022, but yeah, like the same insane plans that we see, I think out delivered or over delivered on literally all the fronts, on all the goals that we have set for ourselves. So I couldn't be happier for all of us. And I mean, I can promise you one thing. If we as a company are doing well, this is only possible because you as investors are doing well. It would be impossible any other way around. So I know for a fact that every one of you from like the beginning of the year until now has made money. Sure, we all can look at and I mean I can say the same about cake as well. Of course, we all would like do better if Bitcoin would have hit 100,000, and if I don't know Ethereum would have hit 10,000, and if DFI would have hit I don't know $50 this year. Of course, we would all do better. Sure, but I 100% know that all of you made tons of money this year, and I know that for the very simple reason because we are in the same boat as you. And that's very different to exchanges. That's very different to any kind of trading company where this is the total opposite. There, people make money on the trading fees, on the exchange fees. They are not in the same boat as the customer. And we are. And that is very, very important. And I just want to highlight that because we are aligned with our incentives.
Yeah,
Cool.
100%. Just to bring this home, as Julian
Yep.
mentioned, if you're on an exchange or on a leverage exchange, you're playing against the house. So they win if you get liquidated or if you trade. It doesn't really matter if you make money or lose money. And at Cake, the only actual source of income is, we were transparent about this, we take a 15% cut, but only on the money you earn. And so it means if you earn, we earn. And yeah, so we're pretty aligned with our customers, and it's only possible to win together. That's actually a pretty nice way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Cool. So I want to finish with two things. First of all, Christmas promo. Stay tuned for details end of the week, beginning of next week. So like, stay tuned. Second, be ready that you are verified and that your entire sign up process basically is finished. It doesn't matter if you have already funds on your account or if you don't have funds on the account. You just want to be ready with everything. That is the key thing. It's going to be applicable to any of our users. Um, there are certain regional exceptions. That is just because, yes, talk to your favorite like party that is your lovely regulator. Talk to them why certain promotions are not allowed. We would love to allow them for you. We just can't because of the person or the party that air quotes wants to protect you from doing this. So you can thank them for being so cautious for you and having your best interests in mind. So if you are excluded because of the regional reasons, then trust me, this is not because of us. This is because of your caretaker not allowing you to do certain things because they have your best interests in mind. Air quote. So stay focused on look out what's happening end of the week, beginning of next week. You're gonna love it. I can assure that to you. I think that is. Am I missing anything on that without going too much into the details?
No, it's perfect. You should have a verified account by the end of this week to be ready, and we will give you enough time to look at the promotion, to participate in it, and it's really like industry best what we have planned for you guys. And maybe just to finish it off, if you have any questions, if you're new to Cake or if you are a veteran already, consider joining us on Telegram. We have very, very productive and helpful groups that answer all of your questions. If you ask a nice way, you will receive a very nice answer within a few minutes. And shout out to all the moderators. Some of them are here in chat right now in Twitter Space. They are doing a great job with answering all of our customer questions. And also shout out to Fabrizio and Pedar, our customer support agents that are also here in our Twitter Space right now. They're doing an amazing job. We are at all-time highs in customer requests just because of the new features we launched. And I think they're doing a great job keeping up and answering everything.
Very nice. I got nothing else to add. We are doing a DeFi chain Twitter space in a little bit. I think in 2 hours, 3 hours. I think in 3 hours. So if you're interested in that, join. This is going to be more around the various options on how to get the DUSD price to basically the Oracle price, which is $1. And there's various options to discuss. Again, this is purely a brainstorming discussion session. You can unmute yourself and share your ideas. So join that. And otherwise, if you're not interested in that, I wish you a very nice Christmas. Obviously, I hope you are connected with us on Twitter and in Telegram. We're gonna share ideas, discuss. It's just the last Twitter space here for Cake. And with that, really, I wish you all the best. I wish you a lot of health, wealth,